Hello and welcome to another Army Roundup podcast. This is Smorganite speaking, and I'm going to be talking this week about we're going to be doing an Army Roundup, but I'm going to be talking about it in a different way than I've done some of the other Army Roundups. Now, this one's actually going to be sort of a foreshadowing one, because I don't actually have anything for this army other than their Primarch, so it's going to be quite nice to actually talk about what I would plan to use instead of what I've already got. So, to start off with, I do already have Guilliman. Now, he was something that I got quite early on, purely because of the project I wanted to do of every Primarch. It was a model that I wasn't super fussed about getting for gaming, because I think it's more of a stoic model than a sort of a battle model. Like Lionel Johnson is sort of a Primarch that you can see in the midst of battle, with Guilliman being sort of the good chief organizer, I think is best way of being described. Is I think sort of with him being so very good at diplomacy and working out sort of different tactics and stuff, he's got a model to represent that. Now, he doesn't sort of have the Emperor's Sword like he does in the 40k iteration of him, but I do have both models there. I do also have the Victrix Guard, I think, for Warhammer 40,000 as well, which obviously are Primaris, so wouldn't be used in the Horus Heresy army. But for this, what I'm going to talk through is the size of army that I would get up to, which would probably be about 1,000 points, and I'd probably use it for sort of a Zone Mortalis situation. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So excluding the Primarch, what I would take is I would probably look at sort of, a Praetorian, just because, that's sort of a standard way to go for building up a smaller army. You sort of take a Praetorian and then sort of a specialist unit, or, take Rites of War that have specialist units in, and the ability to have a specialist unit from the Ultramarine army. Now, the Invictarus Caesarian squad, they're really cool models. I love their helmets and shoulder pads with the sort of Aquilas on, so they would be a staple in the army, purely because of sort of, they've got boarding shields, so they've got some sort of better save for Zone Mortalis, which is, what sort of a boarding shield might best be used for, landing on a Space Hulk and running through corridors and stuff and being shot at by, maybe the odd heavy weapons squad and stuff like that. So I would definitely want to take the Invictarus Caesarian squad, and I could see down the line, sort of getting a couple of boxes of those. The Contemptor Dreadnought, I actually think it's one of the nicer Contemptor Dreadnoughts that we've actually got for a specific legion in Horus Heresy. I really like the cleanliness of it. With Ultramarines, I know sort of there are a lot of people out there that say that, Ultramarines are the poster boys, and in 40k I think they're a bit too clean, but with the sort of Heresy, I see them more as a clean army, whereas with them being used in 40k against like Death Guard and then again against like Necrons and stuff, to me it just makes me think, well, they should be a bit more battered and bruised than what they're being painted up as. They need to have some armor damage, some chips here and there and stuff like that. What I would probably look at is a breacher squad, just so I can use those beautiful Praetorian breacher shields. Now, those I just think are absolutely stunning, and if they didn't have the Ultramarine logo on them, I would definitely be sort of taking those as shields for my Imperial Fists, or for another a Legion, just so that I've got a use out of those beautiful shields, and I just think they fit the aesthetic for sort of a nice Zone Mortalis force down to the T kind of thing. So yeah, I think I would sort of focus on maybe doing Breacher style army with the Invictarus, and then sort of have 2 units of sort of troops, just so that I'd got a bit more bolter fire and stuff, and actually look at getting a Contemptor with whether or not it'd have las cannons or Volkite. I wouldn't know which I would choose. I'd probably go with sort of a more of a heavier loadout, just because I think it would be best to have sort of a heavier shooting element just to cover while the Invictaris run in to try and get into the combat that they need to get into with their close combat weapons. So yeah, it'd probably sort of be sort of a bog standard list. I'm not the biggest Ultramarines nerd or fan or anything, so I don't know too much about any of Rights of War or anything specific like that, but I just thought I'd give a little lowdown of sort of my thoughts on the Forge World models, and they are very nice models. They look very clean, and sort of, you know, those helmets and shoulder pads, they are the real selling point for me. I really think they look awesome, and I think they fit really nicely with sort of the aesthetic that they're going for, with this sort of like ultra loyal kind of emblems and aquillas and stuff on their armour. So yeah, I would definitely sort of take the specialist units for this army. Again, it's a shorter podcast this week just so that I've sort of covered this. It'll also be sort of I'll be doing it for every sort of legion that I want to take, which is all the loyalist legions for the Magnum Opus plans. So yeah, this one, as I say, a bit shorter this week, but sort of a little lowdown on my thoughts towards the Ultramarines from Forge World. So yeah, well, thank you very much for listening, and take care. Welcome to the second episode of Season 2. It's me, Sporganite, here again to talk to you about a project that I mentioned a few times in Season 1. I mentioned it a lot in my Magnum Opus podcast that Minion and I did together. This is a project that originally started with 10 Inner Circle Cenobium Knights and rapidly grew into a project comparable only by size to a legion. You know, it became its own life force of my hobby. It became the big focus of my hobby for a long time, throughout summer last year, through winter last year, and even, sort of March to August this year, I've been adding to it still, even taking stuff and adding it that I would never have expected to add, of course you read the title, you know what this episode's about. It is the Solar Marines, the Dark Angels, the force that I just started with 10 Terminator models from Minion, and it's grown into this collection that I just can't, I wouldn't have been able to fathom it when I started Dark Angels, that's for certain. Obviously, it's grown into its own. I'm very happy with where it's grown into. The only trouble that I have is Croydon and Minion and Jarl not so much, but my friends around me, they don't have anything comparable in size, and obviously we play on a 6x4 usually, so I'm never going to have the chance to field it all, but at the same time, I just want one of those games, the ones that you and your community will talk about forever. It's one that it's a game that's remembered absolutely forever. You remember all the details. You remember, the Lion went up against 30 Marines, 2 units of one of 20 man and one of 10 man, and there was power fists and stuff, and the Lion managed to slay all of the enemies, and just the epic stories that you get, that every Warhammer hobbyist, and if you're listening to this podcast, I'm only going to assume you are a Warhammer hobbyist, or at least you have some knowledge of the universe and some interest in it. Obviously, if you don't, then welcome. Obviously, this is what I'm rambling about. This is what all my episodes have been about, is my love and my community's love for the hobby, and the Solar Marines. So it started, as I've said, with 10 Terminators. It's grown massively since then. Originally, the rule was going to be no D weapons. That stayed for quite a while, to be fair. We had the glaive. I started with a glaive. That was something that was absolutely awesome to have, because I've loved that Volkite weapon since the moment I first laid eyes on it. I've also added in a Fellblade. I've got far too much to be able to recall it all off the top of my head. I know I've got like all the Forge World big things, Thunderhawk, Stormbird, Mastodon, Glaive, Fellblade, all the Forge World kits that are the Lords of War pretty much. Apart from the Falchion, that was one that I didn't want to get. I think it's the twin-linked Volcano Cannon. I wasn't particularly too interested in that, purely because if I'm going to take a Volcano Cannon, you're betting your money that it's going to be on a Warlord. Why would I want to take it on anything else? I've been able to add in. Now I've got 20 Interruptors. I've got 20 heavy bolters. I've got plasma guns coming out my ears. I've got plasma cannons coming out my ears. I did that squad of 10 plasma cannon dudes, all of them the same pose from the Dark Vengeance, just because that plasma cannon had its own Dark Angels iconography on it. I know obviously they're technically not in the right armor, but the community I play with as a whole generally don't mind. If it's got a cool reason behind it, to me that's a cool enough reason that I wanted 10 of the same model, because that plasma cannon had the Dark Angels iconography on it. It had the extra details that made it, to be more Dark Angels-y than a normal plasma cannon. Obviously, this new edition, we've now got Mark 6 or Beaky Marines. I've sort of stayed away from wanting them purely because they are fractionally taller than the Marines that I've already got. I don't want them standing out. Mark 6 isn't a power armor for me. I prefer the Mark 3. Mark 2, if they ever did that in plastics, I've got my fingers and toes crossed right now that, we'll get plastic Mark 2 Marines, because that would just be absolutely epic. The Mark 1 Marines for Dark Angels would be like a dream come true, but I know where my limits lie of asking Games Workshop, to throw us a bone and do something like awesome. The Mark 6, yeah, it's cool. The only problem I've got is the fact that the special weapons and the heavy weapons only fit on the Mark 6. Now, I've not seen whether or not there's any conversions out there that you can do to make it fit on the other Mark armors. Obviously, I've just seen the promotional stuff says, it fits to the Mark 6 Marines. So I've sort of not touched it. I've not had the ability to be able to play around and, see if they could actually fit onto Mark 3s or even Mark 4s, So, yeah, I personally haven't got any of the new plastic stuff for the basically for the troops. What I do have is I have the new Predator tank. I have 2 Sicarans, the 2 plastic Sicarans. I've got in I think 3 rhinos, 3 plastic rhinos now, which is absolutely brilliant. The plastic stuff that's coming out is fantastic. I'm glad they are doing it in plastic, and I'm glad that the Heresy is getting the attention that it deserves in plastic, in my opinion. But at the same time, I want more troops. I want the assault squads. I want the knowledge that they're going to do breaches. They're going to do stuff that has originally just been in resin. I want the ability to be able to forward plan. I don't want to go to Forge World and think, actually, I want to go and get some, assault squads in resin, because I want assault squads, but I don't want to have to pay for them in resin and have the whole dealing with resin. I've dealt with a lot of resin. I've got 11 Titans. I've got the Manta. I've got the Thunderhawk, Stormbird. I don't want to have to deal with resin if they're going to do plastic in 6 months or even a year's time. I will wait. I'm in no rush. My hobby, I've done it such a long time. Waiting an extra 6, 12, 18 even months is nothing, on me. So I would, and I was talking to this with the Jarl. I was talking to him and saying, it would be so cool for them to just put a post on the Warhammer community website where they just go, right, this is the roadmap. We are planning on releasing plastic breaches in June 2023, and it's like, fantastic. I know that, awesome. I'm not going to rush, even if they then say, come May next year in 2023, they say, oh, actually, no, we're delaying it for a little bit because of X, Y, and Z. We've not had the ability to be able to package them, and stuff like that. So yeah, we were just talking how cool that would be. They gave us a roadmap for the rules, the PDFs, and the content that they're going to be releasing to be able to field things like the Custodes. I will say I am so glad that I didn't just have a Custodes army for Heresy, because there was a point when I did just have a Custodes army. I would have been very disappointed if I just had my Custodes army still, because I wouldn't be able to play. I can't believe they released a new edition in, when was it? July, August this year, and we still don't have rules for the Solar Auxilia or the Custodes, two huge armies in the lore, and we don't have any rules for them, and demons, that, I know demons came into the Heresy later, obviously demons were involved in the lore a lot, but they obviously came in to the battles and stuff later on in the Heresy, after Horus had fallen and stuff. Obviously they still manifested and stuff with the word bearers and all that sort of the side of it, but in battles they weren't prominent until towards the end of the Heresy. And obviously in the Siege of Terror, spoilers, if you haven't read Echoes of Eternity and things like that, I'm going to talk about it right now. So if you want to just skip ahead, I'll try and talk about it up until 10 minutes exactly on this recording. So go. Yeah, so obviously in the Solar in Echoes of Eternity, you have the demons, you have things like that. You have Kabanda, which we got a PDF rules for him, but that's absolutely to me, I'm like, well, why is he now a Lord of War? He was a HQ before, and it was so cool that you could build this awesome army, and it wouldn't cause any problems with having different models as your HQ. Kabanda as your HQ was awesome, and that was in Horus Heresy 1.0. But why have we still not got rules for demons? It's, we're sort of 3 or 4 months into new Heresy 2.0. Everyone's pushing this Heresy, and I get the marketing side of it. I get where Games Workshop are coming from with this whole it's Marines versus Marines, which is brilliant. But what I think they should have done is the mech, the Solar Auxilia, the Custodes, the demons, all the tertiary forces, because your primary force is going to be the Marines, okay? The secondary force is then going to be the potential of an allied Marine or something, your Lords of War, maybe your Titans, things like that. That, if they'd have done those together, maybe not the Titans together, but you get what I'm saying, like, they do the main army, Marines, and then do all the secondary and tertiary armies together, release the mech, release the demons, release the Custodes, all in one go. Why make us wait months and months for it, Anyway, no, I'm not going to get into a ramble, I'm on the Solar Marines, the Dark Angels, I've just this week, in fact, completed a commission for a customer where I painted up the Lionel Johnson, my third Lion model, because obviously I've got my 2, one with each weapon, and then this one, and it just reinvigorated my love for this Legion. Black is, I said this in the very first podcast I did about the Solar Marines, black is a notoriously difficult colour to paint. Okay, whether you spray them black and then edge highlight, or spray them black then Abaddon black, or whether you use a contrast paint, it's dealer's choice really. But to me, my Dark Angels, the way I've done them, they're simple, quick, easy, fieldable. You can play with them quite quickly, okay? And it was something I was talking to a person in my community about, I don't want to be painting models to an extent where I'm scared to move them on the table for fear of chipping the paint, or for fear of, smudging it, or just causing a damage to the model because of the paint level. I've got models that are on display, I've got all the Primarchs on display in my house, Croydon, as the best fiancée that she is, she has allowed me to put models on display, in the bookcases and things like that, underneath the Horus Heresy books, next to the Primarch books, things like that. But at the same time, all of those are still playable models, apart from maybe Sanguinius, purely because of the diorama base, and he's perhaps too precious to me, but all of the others are gaming pieces, so they are painted to a level where they are acceptable on the tabletop, but they're not, do not touch this model, okay? And the lions that I've got are no different, but painting this third one to a higher level, the customer asked for it to be a higher level so that it could sit on his display case, it just made me go, actually, that's what I want to be focusing on, if I'm not going to be able to be gaming soon, because Minion and I, we've been talking about it, and we've hardly seen each other this year. I've seen him probably less than 10 times, and for reference, I'm recording this in October, at the start of October, so it's, it means that I've not had the chance to be able to game. One thing we have been gaming a lot of in the meantime is Aeronautica, the skirmish games, things like Necromunda. We've been looking a lot at that, and in the year that I've not been recording podcasts, I've built a Necromunda board, and one of the episodes will be about that Necromunda board, because I absolutely loved doing that. It was something that, it reinvigorated my love for scenery, for building a board that can have its own mechanic, and you can think, if you stood there, you can be seen from here, and here. The Hive City hab blocks were perfect for that, but I won't go into it today, because, as I say, still on the Solar Legion. Basically, I also got the Solar Legion out. I got them out on my garden table. I put them all out, and you couldn't see much garden table left. The Mastodon is a huge footprint. The two glaive chassis, the Fellblade and the glaive, they are also a huge footprint. Then the Thunderhawk and the Stormbird as well. They're the two biggest flyers from Forge World, and they look epic next to each other. But the reason, in fact, the reason I got the Thunderhawk was because Croydon and I were out, and we visited a third party somewhere in Cornwall, and if you're listening, obviously you'll remember the conversation, but the shop owner actually said to me that the Thunderhawk and the Stormbird are very comparable in size, the models wise, and I thought, I don't think they are. I've got the Stormbird. At the time I had the Stormbird, and I said to Croydon, I'm actually quite curious as to whether they are, and in Forge World, when you go at Warhammer World, you'll see them in the cabinet near to each other, but you can't physically get them both out and, compare from above. So I thought, well, that was a good enough reason as any to actually get the Thunderhawk. So I got it, built it up, painted it, compared, and went, actually, the Thunderhawk's long and thin, whereas the Stormbird's, long and fat, basically. It goes like a big triangle, and but I wanted the Thunderhawk, and I said this to Minion. We were supposed to have like a deal when one of us got a Thunderhawk, the other one had to get one at the same time, so we could build, paint, and do it together, because he wanted to use his as a Grey Knight one, because I think in 6th edition, maybe even earlier, but I think 6th edition, apparently the Thunderhawk, the Grey Knight Thunderhawk was incredibly good, but I can't attest to that, because I didn't play 40k back then. I was solely on the Middle-earth, the train for Middle-earth, and that's also something, this season, there are so many episodes to come, I'm so excited for you to be able to hear what we've been up to. There's been a lot, and we will be making a very big effort this year to be able to get the rest of season 2 done before the end of the year, so then we've had 2 seasons for 2 years, basically. I started this last year, so watch this space. As I say, episode 2 is about the Dark Angels. The next one, I'm going to do it on the Necromunda board, and we'll take it from there. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, evening, afternoon, morning, whenever you're listening to this. I hope your day's great. Take care, and bye bye.